If you want to be more efficient and effective while running your business with more inner peace, then working on the core of your issues instead of putting on a band-aid is vital. Welcome to the Business Brain Podcast.
I'm your host, Esty Rapport, and here to help you improve your 28 cognitive functions, the 28 things that make up thinking. In each episode, we'll discuss a real-life challenge, why you might be struggling with it, and give you practical strategies so all areas of your life will improve.
Every week, I look for more ways to save time. And every week, I find more ways to save time because I'm not looking for hacks. I'm looking for ways to implement strategies that I know work in more areas of my life. In this episode, I'm going to share with you the secret, that secret strategy, so that way you can save more time each and every week in every area of your life. That's what's coming up next on the Business Brain Podcast, episode 423. But first, are you an entrepreneur with ADHD? Would you like to learn how to leverage your superpowers and optimize your ADHD so running your business is a whole lot easier? If yes, I'd love to see you part of our next cohort. Learn more and apply at lifefixuniversity.com/your brain rewired. For today's real life challenge, I want you to imagine you're Esty Rapport. Yep, me, just for a moment. This is a real life challenge that actually came out of my own life. So imagine you've just spent 2 years studying in England, started a business while you were in college in England, and come home to continue growing and working on your business. Esty Rapport at this point in her life is super organized and plans her day the night before and never procrastinates, or almost never, I should say. When she remembers she's got an errand to do, she does it right away because she doesn't procrastinate. Then 2 hours later, she remembers another errand to do. So she does it right away because she doesn't procrastinate. And guess what? 2 hours later again, she remembers another errand to do and goes out to do that errand again because she doesn't procrastinate. You've probably heard people talk about batching social media content to save time. But personally, I think it's spoken about in the wrong way. Not that you don't want to batch social media content. You want to understand the principles behind batching so that way you can A, batch your social media content more efficiently, but B, actually apply this to more areas of your life. If you are struggling with doing many of one task at a time and being able to think ahead and what you need for the future instead of just running to do your errand right now, you may be struggling, like I was, with the cognitive function, with the thinking skill of categorization. Categorization is about taking a big group and splitting it into smaller groups. But it's also about taking smaller groups or single items and putting them together in a group. I am going to assume that if I give you a bag of marbles and tell you to split it according to color, you can do that. No problem, right? I mean, you're running a business, so you could do that. However, if I give you a list of tasks, can you split it into small groups of tasks or maybe big groups of tasks, and not just one big group of tasks, but many groups of tasks, so that way you're organizing in a most efficient and effective way. Often we start categorizing just by what comes to mind, right? So if we're organizing things by task, it might be like according to room, or it might be according to project. But then all of a sudden in the middle, there's this one random item that doesn't fit in any of the groups I've graded. So either we create a new group for it, or we stuff it in a group that just doesn't make sense for it to go in. And all of a sudden our groups aren't really organized. Or maybe you split them into groups that aren't the most efficient way of doing things. Now, before I share with you the secret or the question that I like to use to constantly be saving time, I am going to tell you that if you struggle with the cognitive function of categorizations on some level, even if you may be good at it, like being able to split marbles, or even you could even sort some tasks in the most efficient way, it is going to be a challenge for you in the beginning. Every single entrepreneur that I talk to them about this question in the beginning, they're like, I could take this to some level, but some level it's a challenge. The more you practice this and the more you do it, the better you get at it. Ready for the secret? Simple question. What's the best way to group these tasks in this situation? I'm going to repeat it for you. What's the best way to group these tasks in this situation? Most of the time, doing the same of a task at a time is the best way to do it. All right, sit down and write 10 emails to your email list, or sweep your whole house, not just the kitchen, right? Respond to all your emails in one sitting. That is usually the best way to batch. Do all of one thing at a time. The reason this works so well is because every time you start a task, you use the most amount of energy. If you've got ADHD or struggle with task initiation, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're probably self-aware enough to know that once you start the task, like you're in it and you can just keep on doing it. But actually starting the task is like your brain is just thinking about it and everything that it has to do, that it is just super challenging. And the struggle is real. As you start getting better at grouping tasks, if you ask yourself, what is the best way to group these tasks in this situation, you'll find yourself going very deep. I can group the tasks by working on podcasts, right? I can say Wednesdays are my podcast days and I am working on podcasts. That's grouping, right? Now I can group them a little bit more. I can say that I am working today just on writing podcast episodes, not recording, not editing. I am just doing podcasts, like the writing and the brainstorming of those episodes. Now I'm batching even more. I'm not just doing podcast work, but I'm actually doing writing work. Now I can take this even further. I can group the tasks by writing all the podcast intros, because all the podcast intros will have a similar format, right? Like on this podcast, it's all the questions at the beginning and like the little bit introduction of what is happening. So I can open up 10 Google Docs and do all the podcast intros. And I am not talking about the CCAs, and I am not talking about the content, and I'm talking about the cognitive functions that are related to it. I'm just talking about the podcast intros. You see how deep that is? It's not just working on podcasts. It's not just working on podcast writing. It's working on one minority part of the podcast writing and doing that exact task over and over and over again saves the most amount of time. Your brain is in it. Your brain can do it one after the next. Another example, podcast example. As you can see, I'm recording podcasts. And probably if I'm recording this podcast about batching, I am batching those podcasts 100%. Just because I am recording a bunch of podcasts, I don't want to be wearing the same outfit in every single one of those podcasts. So before I even started, I prepared all my outfits for all the podcasts that I'm going to be recording. Do you see what I did there? Now, although I absolutely love batching in as many areas of my life as possible, right? And I'm constantly asking myself this question, what is the best way to batch these tasks in this situation? Notice it has in this situation, because not every situation is it possible for you to be able to do a whole bunch of a certain task. You need to use your own judgment, your own cognitive functions and experience to figure out what is best. I absolutely love batch recording my TikToks because I batch everything. However, every time I get off a session, I always have so many ideas and TikToks, and I want to share with the world what we've just discussed in those sessions. Yes, I can technically write them down for next time that I'm recording those TikToks. And I've done them in the past. But honestly, I found that the TikToks came out best when I was coming right off the sessions, because the session was amazing. That concept is fresh in my mind, and I can just say it right away. I'm already in a very expressive outward state of just running this session. Then now taking out my phone and taking 5 minutes to record 3 TikToks based on the session that we've just recorded was actually best. So in this situation, I'm not batching a whole bunch of TikToks. Instead, I'm batching the concepts, or you could say I'm batching my energy. Does that make sense? So there is a million ways for you to be able to batch. I know there are some of you that are still thinking, I just don't have time to batch. Or maybe you're thinking, I don't have patience to do the same task over and over again. Both of you, whether it's time or whether it's about patience. I'm going to say it's about practice, willingness, or growth mindset, as we like to call it in this place, and strong cognitive functions. as you get better at categorizing, you will find yourself being able to think bigger picture and how to arrange your day and how to arrange your life so that way you, yes, have more time. And so that way, yes, you have more energy and you will actually develop super brain ability to focus longer on the same task. You've just got to start. Give yourself grace in the beginning if it's not working exactly the way you want it to work out, but you will get better at it. Today, we spoke about saving time using the cognitive function of categorizations. The better we are able to group and organize, the more time we will save. Your challenge this week is to use this question and ask yourself, what is the best way to group these tasks in this situation? You can also hang a sticky note near your workspace or on your fridge, somewhere where you'll see often, maybe even as a screensaver, with that question. What is the best way to group these tasks in this situation? Have an awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next episode.
That's all for this episode of the Business Brain Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with 2 of your business friends so they too can gain from it, and you'll be helping us reach our goal of 1 million downloads by the end of 2025. Cheers to peak brain performance.